So thanks again for coming tonight. I want to welcome our speaker, Chris Cooper. So Chris is the CEO and founder of Catalyst Gym and Two Brain Business. He's got a great story for you and lots of lessons learned. So I'll welcome Chris to the front.
Well, thanks for coming, everybody. It's pretty awesome to look around and see people who know like different pieces of this story. And so my goal tonight is to try and just like straighten out the Rubik's Cube for everybody and tie it all together. So we started off years ago owning a gym in 2005. And that was our first company in the Sault. And we had this one gym and it was doing okay. I was working probably about a 70-hour week and we were just not quite making enough. And so we thought the logical thing to do was to start a second gym, which we did. And that didn't work. So after a couple of years of that, the first gym was doing okay. The second gym was kind of bankrupting us. And I found myself sitting in the park down in front of the library going like, what am I going to do? And we had just missed 2 paychecks in a row. We were basically broke. I didn't have money to pay my payroll or my rent. And I wasn't really sure how we were going to get out of it. And so I said like, okay, Chris, it's time to put away the ego. You're smart, but like, obviously you're not just going to figure this out. You're hardworking, but you can't work more than you already are. So it's time to find somebody that's figured this out. And I started looking around in the fitness industry and looking for anybody that had like had a 30-year career and paid for their kids' college and then like retired. And I couldn't find anybody except for this one guy who was so terrible that I said, if I have to behave like this guy, this is the wrong industry for me. Luckily, a couple of months later, a friend of mine, Mike Pratt, hooked me up with the Innovation Center. And they had this program called Entrepreneur in Residence or Mentor in Residence. You probably remember that, Nevin. And they had this guy named Dennis Turcotte. Does anybody remember Dennis? So Dennis was the CEO of Algoma Steel. He led a big turnaround, ending in around 2008, 2009. And his legacy project for the Sault was he was going to work with 5 entrepreneurs and kind of plant a seed before he left town. And so I lucked into this program. I was one of the 5. And at our first meeting, I showed up at Algoma University, met with him in this little office. And I thought, okay, this guy's going to give us all this marketing advice. If I just get more clients, all my problems are over. That's what's going to solve the money problem. And the first thing he said after he listened to my story is like, you don't want one more person coming in your gym. It's such a mess that you should not be marketing right now because you're just going to like blow through these people. They're going to hate it. So don't buy advertising. And then we worked for 2 hours on what I needed to do, which was like systems and processes. And he said, okay, I need you to finish this work by Monday for me and then turn it in. And I said, okay, yeah, great. Like 2 hours in, I'm exhausted. And I'm pulling out this like crumpled up check from my back pocket. And I'm writing it to him. I'm like, how much is it? And he goes, it's $500. And so I'm writing, oh boy, okay, $500. And I was handing it to him and I said, I got to tell you, I got to be honest. This check's going to bounce. Like, I don't have $500. If you take this to the bank today, they're going to like just push it right back at you. And he said, I know. And that's how I know that you're going to get this work done by Monday because you have to. And so I went home, he took the check and I spent a weekend writing out a staff playbook and just getting my business out of my head. Exactly how to open up the gym in the morning, how to turn on the lights, what radio station to turn it to, how to clean the floors, how to clean the showers, everything. And it like ruined my weekend, but it probably saved our business. And then by Monday, with this $500 massive check hanging over my head, a client finished up their personal training session with me. His name was Bob. It was 2 o'clock and I knew the banks closed at 4. And I said, Bob, I know you got 2 sessions left in your personal training package. Do you want to pay for your next 20 sessions now? And he said, yeah, okay, sure. And I made $700 and that was the biggest sale of my life because I had to. The lessons that I learned from Dennis were just amazing. And there were so many of them. But some of the first meta lessons that I learned about business came from that very first meeting. And it was that you won't do anything unless there's something forcing you to do it. Without something forcing urgency, you won't get anything done. So after working with Dennis for about 9 months, he left town to retire to Florida. And I said, okay, this guy's taught me a ton of stuff. I'm going to start forgetting it. I need to start writing this down. And I knew from my days as a student that the way that I remember stuff is to pretend to teach it to somebody else. So when you teach something, you get to learn it twice. And so I started writing myself like the textbook that I wanted to have for my own gym. And I called it Don't Buy Ads. And I published it publicly because that was the kind of, not incentive, but like commitment that I needed to actually do it. Knowing that like nobody's ever going to find this blog on a random typepad website, right? I called it don'tbuyads.com. The very first post was June 15th, 2009, the day before Robin's birthday. And don't go read it. I don't even know what it's about. Going back and reading it today, I'm like, what the hell was I even talking about here? But what happened was I kept posting every day, and I would find one thing to think about or one thing to fix or one thing to remember every single day. I started reading the books like The E-Myth, Good to Great, stuff that Dennis had given me as homework. And I started taking my lessons from those books and putting them on the blog. And then somebody read it. I don't know how they found it. I guess there weren't very many gym business blogs back then. But I started seeing this little number pop up, 1 reader, 2 readers. And then gym owners started sharing it with each other. And they shared it with this organization called CrossFit. CrossFit at that time had about 8,000 gyms. And the day that they found the blog, they shared it with all the gyms. And so suddenly I had 400 or 500 readers in a day. And I thought, well, this is cool, but I better be careful what I say. And so a year and a half, 2 years into doing this, I got a phone call from a gym in Fort Lauderdale. And they said, hey, we got 30 gym owners together. We took up a collection. We're going to fly you down here to talk to us. And I said, that's cool, but like if you just pay for my flights, I can't afford to come because I can't afford a hotel room or meals. And they said, okay, we'll figure it out. And by the way, we've got 2 really good speakers coming too. So they're paying their own way. So I said, okay, I'll come down. And but I knew the other 2 speakers. And one guy was the founder of this pretty big franchise in southern states called Iron Tribe. The other guy had just won the CrossFit Games. And so I knew these guys were going to show up and bring it. Like one guy had playbooks and like how to market your gym. And the other guy was just like huge and ripped and amazing. And then I don't know what I was doing there, but I guess they thought I might be a good bridge between the 2 of them. So I said, well, these guys are going to show up with amazing materials. I got to show up with something. What if I took like the top 20 blog posts and just like shipped that out and handed it out? And so I went through the blog and I found the ones that had the most likes and I copied them into a Microsoft Works document. Do you guys remember Works? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, this is a lot of paper. This was less than a year after 9/11. I'm not sure I really want to haul this through US Customs and try to pretend that I'm attending a seminar. What if I like shipped the file down to a Kinko's and picked it up when I got there? But that wouldn't work because I wouldn't have a rental car. And finally, a hero of mine, Seth Godin, said, it's easier just to self-publish. And so I found this website called lulu.com. They said, yeah, upload your file here. Now you got to create a cover. I'm like, I don't have a cover. So I went in Microsoft Paint and held down the left mouse button and drew that head. The gears took like a day in themselves and uploaded this cover file and shipped it down to Fort Lauderdale. And then I flew out. I didn't even know if the books were going to get there. And I showed up and I walk in the gym the night before. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows what's going on. I'm like, I'll help you guys set up some chairs or something. By the way, did a box of books show up with my name on them? And they're like, I don't think so. I don't know. So we looked around their office and found it. There were about 30 copies of that book. We set it out on a desk. And the next day, the 3 of us got up to talk. And the first guy went up and he spoke for an hour about like how to run a professional business. And I was like, well, that guy was really good. And then the CrossFit Games guy got up and like they loved him. And then it was my turn. And I just told stories about stuff I'd screwed up in my gym. And I had 3 hours of questions afterward. And then I left, and there was, more than half of the books sitting on this shelf on the way out the door. So 15 copies of the book or whatever. And I'm like, I can't carry this box of books back on an airplane. I'll just leave them. And I should have grabbed a copy, but I didn't. Because when I got home, somebody who was supposed to be there said, hey, I didn't get a copy of your book. How do I get it? So I put it on Amazon just so that he could buy one copy. And the book sold 32,000 copies. Yeah. And it's the best-selling fitness business book of all time. So, and the crazy part is, if you got a copy of the original book, like there was no table of contents, but it didn't matter because there were no page numbers anyway. There was like a chapter 2, but no chapter 1 or chapter 3. Probably half the images were copyrighted, and I just like right-clicked on them on the internet. These are free for everyone. So we've cleaned it up since then. But what I figured out from there was, you can make a little bit of money doing this. So Amazon paid, back in those days, they paid a really hefty royalty of about $2.70 on every book you sell. And so the first month that it was on Amazon, we sold 50 books. And Amazon mailed me a check of about $105 American money. And I said, we're rich. This is amazing. Like I don't, and all I'm doing is copying the stuff that I've already published for free. And then over time, the checks started to grow. And the biggest one we ever got, I think, was like $450 US. And I said, this is insane. Like I'm John Grisham or whatever, So around late 2012, a guy who owned a website company out in Utah read the book and called me. And he said, Chris, I'm making websites for gym owners. They all call me with their problems. I don't know what to tell them. Can you take a call? I said, yeah, sure, I'll call him. So on the third call that I made with one of his website companies, there's a woman named Ginger from New Jersey. And she's like, thanks for spending so much time with me. How much does it cost for your mentorship program? And I said, I forget, I'll call you right back. So I called the guy that owned the website company. I'm like, Clay, this woman wants to give me money. What do I do? And he's like, take it. Good business advice. So he and I quickly worked out a deal where if his clients paid us $1,000, he would keep half and I would keep half. And so I called Ginger back and I'm like, it's $1,000 American. And she's like, oh, sounds great. Like, you've got my credit card, just run it. So I'm like, we're going to be talking on the phone, right? Like, I'm not coming down there. And within a week, we had 3 of those. And I can remember going home and saying to Robin, this is insane. Like, imagine if I had 10 gyms that I talked to every week. And within 3 months, we had 45. So quickly, my schedule filled up. I had 45 one-hour phone calls every week. I only had a curriculum of like 10 different topics. So most of the time I was repeating myself. I had to pace around like this all the time so I didn't fall asleep on the phone. But I was capped out. And so I said, okay, well, how do I possibly make more than this, right? We're making like $22.50 a week American talking on the phone here. I better write another couple of books. So what I did was take the first book, and the premise of Two Brain Business is that a business works like your brain does. Your brain has a left hemisphere that's mostly responsible for like math and logic and puzzles, and it has a right hemisphere that's mostly responsible for creativity, empathy, and connection. And your business has the same 2 sides. And I thought that's a pretty clever title. Nobody else got the joke, but whatever. And I thought the next 2 books should just be like, I should break down each side a little bit more. And so I wrote 2 books in 70 days that are each over 300 pages. And they're called Help First and Two Brain Business 2.0. And Help First was all about marketing and sales. And Two Brain Business 2.0 was all about systems and operations and processes in your gym. And, to this day, most people would say that Help First is their favorite book that I've written. So we thought, okay, well, this is great. So now I'm making $2 per book, but I'm selling way more books. I'm absolutely full of clients. What do I do? And the website company guy says, let's just make a course so you don't have to take any more calls. We'll just film everything that you're saying and we'll sell that. I'm like, Okay, you know how to do that, I'll film it. And so over Christmas, this would have been 2013, I think, Robin would take the kids to visit Grandma and Grandpa for 3 hours. And we had this wall that we painted brown in our basement. And I'd stand in front of this wall and just talk to this camera. And the tripod we had was too small, so it was propped up on these Fisher-Price chairs. And it was just my talking head for like 30 to 40 minutes at a time. And then I would do very minimal edits. And we'd, send it up with a prayer to Bell to like upload overnight to the internet, and built a course. And so we launched our first course. 34 people bought it. And we made like 14 grand in a weekend. And I said, I'm rich again. Like, this is amazing. I'm not doing anything now. Let's do it again tomorrow. And so we're following the advice of this book called Launch. And the guy that owned the website company, Clay, said, well, the book says we got to wait 3 weeks and we got to get testimonials and then we sell it again. I said, okay, great. So 3 weeks later, I started calling all the people who had bought the course. And hey, Jay, dude, saw that you bought the course. What's your best result so far? I didn't really get into it yet. Okay, thanks. Lindsay, how are you doing on the course? Well, I flipped through it. Yeah. I got to go back when I got more time and actually do it. Okay. Scott, how are you doing on that course? What changes have you made? What results have you seen? To be honest, I kind of forgot I paid for it. So I went through 30 gym owners and none of them had gotten a result from this course. So we'd made a ton of money on it, but nobody was actually getting value. And so I said, okay, we're done. Like, we're not selling this anymore. And the website company guy was like, we sure are. Like, this is amazing. We're going to sell it again. And so on February 13th, 2016, I left that company and founded twobrainbusiness.com. Now, my partner was not happy. He trashed me to all of our clients, all of our partners, all of our referral people, anybody he knew in the industry. He told them what a bad dude I was. But we opened up the company in 2016 with 16 clients, okay? What I learned from all that, though, was a meta lesson in business, which is if you know how to build an audience, you'll never go hungry. So a lot of us think that to start a business, you have to have like a good idea or a new invention or some new amazing product that's better than anything else out there. And then we open up the business and we start selling, but nobody knows about it. So nobody buys it. And we eventually just run out of runway and go bankrupt. The reality is that now you should start with an audience, build an audience on TikTok, Facebook, whatever you want to, build their trust, find out what they need, and then just sell them the solution to their problem. The whole business world has inverted now, and it's all because of that little device in your pocket that makes you a media company, okay? So this was a big lesson that I had to learn. I had an audience by that point of loyal readers who would buy basically anything that I wanted to sell them that would solve their gym problems, whether it was a book, traveling around, doing seminars. I did that for a couple of years, selling them courses or mentorship. Whatever I said, this will solve your problem, they would buy. And this is really important for all of us to know. Anybody that's thinking of starting a business or already got a business, if you know how to build an audience, you will always have work. Now, about this same time, has anybody here heard of CrossFit? Good. Positive impression, negative, middle? It's okay if it's negative. I don't work for them. I'm not going to get offended. So around this time, CrossFit was getting super duper popular. Now, this guy on the right is Greg Glassman, and he's the founder. Greg was not an athlete. Greg walked with a little bit of a hitch in his step because he had polio when he was a kid. Greg was a genius, very left-brained. He could have worked for NASA. He could not carry on a conversation with people to save his life, okay? And I'm a little bit of the same way, to be honest. But what was happening at that time was he had taken all these different fitness programs, rolled them together, made them really hard, and it became really popular. And so he was running these fitness competitions to actually test how people were doing. And one day they said, does anybody want to attend a fitness competition and be a writer? And they just put this one post on Facebook. And in places like Southern California, where the sport was really big, they had like 300 applicants. And in Northern Ontario, they had 3. And they had 4 jobs. So they said, oh, you're hired. And I said, oh, awesome, perfect, I'll be there. And then before the event happened, 2 of the other 3 writers got fired. And I said, oh, perfect, okay, Robin's coming with me. And then my boss got fired. And suddenly I was in charge and I had never even been to an event before. And so I wrote for CrossFit for the next 8 years. And what that got me was not a lot of money, but it got me access to somebody that's like an actual industry disruptor. Fitness is a massive, massive worldwide industry, right? $6 billion in revenue a year. And that guy changed all of it. He turned out not to be such an amazing dude in the end, but the stuff that I learned from him is crazy valuable. If you go to any gym in town right now, you will find barbells, bumper plates, kettlebells, medicine balls, plyometric boxes. None of that would have been there. If you wanted to find like a good barbell gym in 2000, you would have to go to Northern Lights, right? Where Neil and I went up on Gore Street, where people wouldn't send their kids. Now that's in every gym around the world, and that's because of Greg. So I did learn some really interesting stuff with Greg, and I just produced a podcast about this. It's very true what they say, like you should never meet your heroes unless you want to lose esteem for them. And that did happen. The more I traveled with Greg, the more the luster wore off. But I learned some amazing things from him. And the first thing was, every company is a media company. So after about 2 years of working for Greg, he called his entire media team together in San Diego. And I thought there'd be about a dozen of us. We might do some workouts. There were 120. We had more writers than the NFL. We had the biggest television studio in Northern California for this workout program. And his lesson was, the first thing that he said to us when he got us all in the room was, you guys think you work for a fitness company, but you don't. You work for a media company. And that really stuck with me over the next several years because everything that we've done since has been media focused. As we've hired more and more people in the company, it's usually around media. And so we have like the biggest media team in fitness coaching right now. So 2016, we founded Two Brain Business. For a while, it was just me. Then we hired an ops manager, and eventually we hired an entire media team, and I'll get to that. But what happened was we got the business to about $1 million in revenue, and we started seeing all these great ideas. Hey, we should be also offering this. We should also build that company. Nobody's making really awesome t-shirts for these gym owners. We should start a t-shirt company. And so we founded all these other ideas. Instead of being focused on my one thing that I was actually good at, I chased every little idea that I had. And some of them were good ideas, but they were massive distractions. And so the key lesson that I learned there was you have to know who you're talking to, figure out what their pain is, and stay close to that forever, okay? So, if I'm selling hairdressing, I need to know like why people are coming to me to get their hair done. If I'm selling bookkeeping, I need to know what the primary pain of my client is so that I can get more people like them and tell stories about how I solve that pain for myself, okay? The best thing about my former bookkeeper was she would come in, close the door, and tell me all her bookkeeping problems. And that made me trust her even more. Yeah. So here's a small sample of all the great ideas that I've had and businesses that I've had and eventually just like spiked. So, I wrote Founder, Farmer, Tinker, Thief was my 4th book. It details the entrepreneur's journey. And from that, we started getting calls from chiropractors, and we started getting calls from yoga studios, and we started getting calls from like home improvement services and all these non-gyms. And I said, yeah, we'll take anybody. We'll help you. We'll build a new course for chiropractors. We'll build a new course for yoga. We'll build a new course to train coaches in your gym. And I actually had so many ideas. I don't know if you guys can read this. Every time I had a new idea, I'd just run out and register the domain, right? So it was like twobraincoaching.com, twobrainmedia.com. There's 87 domains registered there, okay? If somebody hadn't shut me down, I would have started 87 companies in like 3 years. And these are some of the ones that we started, right? Some of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about here. We'd start this company, we'd sign up a few clients. This is awesome. And then I would just like lose focus and notice that my main company wasn't growing and shut it down. And so to this day, we've shut down probably a dozen companies that were profitable or just sold them. So the key lesson here for me was not only do you need to stay focused on your primary business, when you've got lots of bad ideas, but you've also got to stay focused when you've got lots of great ideas instead of chasing all those ideas too, okay? Some of you guys have seen these companies before. So by 2018, we had started to scale up. The business was doing around, I don't know, maybe 2 million a year. The first year we did about 250,000. The second year was $1 million. I was like, okay, I guess we just, quadruple every year. And then the third year we only did 2 million. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a letdown. We only doubled. And then we stopped growing. And CrossFit at that time decided they were no longer a media company, that they really didn't know what they were, but they were going to fire all their 120 media staff. And I was the first, as I should have been. So the head editor calls me up. His name's Mike. He's, dude, I'm sorry, I got to fire you. I'm like, no, you should have fired me 6 months ago. Like, you're overpaying me for the stuff that I'm turning in. But if you ever need a job, you call me. And he's like, okay, well, yeah, right. I'm the head of media. Thanks. And he called me 3 months later and said, I need a job. We said, great. And now he's the head of our media department, and he has been ever since. A few months later, one of the gyms we were working with was doing amazing with Facebook ads. And he's like, can we meet? I've got an idea for you. And so we met in Madison, Wisconsin, sat down at a table for an hour, and he said, the program's great, but you're not saving enough gyms. These other gyms have never heard of you, or they're going and signing up with somebody else. They're getting bad information and they're closing. We got to do something. And I said, what should we do? And he's like, Facebook ads. So in 2018, we started spending about $15,000 a month on Facebook ads. And then around that same time, we started hiring other talent to fill gaps. So I said that, I'm a very left brain thinker. We hired Eden, who's my right brain at 2 Brain now, right? She just gave a little wave there. And so what that did was it firmed up our relationship with our clients by putting somebody who's stronger at personal relationships than me into that seat. And so we started building this company bigger and bigger, and we hired a chief financial officer named Greg Crabtree. Greg's got a book. It's called Simple Numbers. And in this book, he talks about something called the Valley of Death. The Valley of Death happens when the business has reached its peak, and you have to hire people who are smarter than you. And you have to hire people who are better than you at their jobs. And that means you have to hire really expensive people before you have the money to pay them. And so that's what I did. And we hired a new head of media, a new head of marketing, a new head of operations, a new head of technology. And suddenly my profit margin in this really awesome business went to like 4%. And my monthly payroll went to like $200,000. And so if we'd had a bad month, things could have got bad real quick. I didn't talk about that though. And we figured, well, okay, we got to get focused here. So what we're going to do is write 2 new books that are just about gyms. They're going to say gym in the title instead of this really weird 2 Brain thing. And we're going to put those on Amazon. And we'll even give them away for free if we have to, but we need to get more clients really quickly. And so for about a year, we just went full bore on marketing, getting clients in, signing them up as hard as we could. Like we were all taking calls all hours of the day just to get people signed up. And finally, we crested the $3 million mark. Hallelujah. It's all profit from here. And then we talked to a gym in China and they had COVID. And that was we were like, what is that? What? And that shut down our industry for 2 years. So that was 2020. But the lucky thing that really happened there was we found out first. Because we were talking to each client individually every single day, we heard of this thing before anybody else did. And we saw what happened in China. And then we saw it happen in Spain, and we saw it happen in Italy. And as it worked its way west, we got to see what was working for gyms to stay open. And so we could call the gyms and say, hey, have you tried this? No, great. And so we had this built-in learning system that by the time COVID lockdowns hit the eastern shores of Canada and the States, we already had a plan. We were ready for it, and we published stuff every single day. It was a stressful time for sure. I was getting up at 4 a.m., reading the newspapers, trying to figure out what advice to give to gym owners. And I learned something that was an amazing lesson from one of my mentors at the time called the CALM model of communication. Okay? CALM is Clarity, Assurance, Leadership, Movement. And so every single day, what we would do is we'd look at the news, what was happening, which states were locked down, which states were offering funding, what governments were doing what. And we would publish. We'd write a love letter to our entire email list. 30,000 readers every single day would get this COVID brief. And we would say, clarity, here's exactly what's happening. Assurance, it's going to be okay. Another gym did this and it worked. Leadership, we were the only ones doing this. And movement was, here's a story of one of our clients doing it and it working. And we just repeated that model every single day. So if you're ever struggling to like, what do I tell my clients? What media do I produce? What do I say on camera, in a blog, on a podcast? Following that model was massive for us. So we would do stuff like this. Every 3 weeks or so, we would publish a special guide that people had to ask for. And we would consolidate all of our best practices, all the best advice we had. Here's what's working. And we would just give it to everybody for free. So obviously our clients were benefiting, but we started saying anybody can have this. We just want gyms to survive. We started a public Facebook group. About 2,000 people joined in like the first month. And all they did in that group was just talk about, what do I do? How do I stay open? And we would give them these free guides and free advice and do as much as we possibly could. And every time we released one of these guides, so every 3 weeks, about 400 people would ask for it. And then I'd have to like start a Facebook DM conversation with every single one and like pass them the guide. But that's what we did for 2 years. And what we learned from that was that if you're trying to build trust and affinity in an audience, a hard time is the best time. Hard times build trust faster. The reason that people buy stuff from us is not because our marketing is the best. It's because they trust us. We have really high audience affinity. Out of our list of 30,000 email readers, like 26,000 read it every single day. We can see who opens it. When we publish a free guide that's like 1 or 2 pages, 400 or 500 people answer it. Between Christmas and New Year's this year, we published a free guide and I had to have help because we had to have 500 Facebook instant messenger conversations, which was nuts. But hard times build trust. And so as gyms started to reopen again, they started to sign up and we saw a massive, massive surge. So the next lesson from this is give your knowledge, sell your guidance. We've been publishing stuff every day for free. We give everything away that I know. We don't keep any secrets back. There's nothing behind the curtain. And I'm not embarrassed to tell people that because the reality is that knowledge doesn't solve anybody's problems, right? If knowledge solved problems, we'd all be billionaires with 6-packs right now. But the reality is that we all need guidance. So our company is a mentorship company for that reason. And so we give knowledge away for free. We still publish every single day. A lot of people who sign up for our program, which is $13,000, they'll tell us your free stuff is better than stuff that I paid thousands of dollars for somewhere else. And that's why we're signing up with you. So through this whole journey, one key lesson that we've learned is like, it's never too much to give away for free. Okay, we're a knowledge company and we give away all of our knowledge for free every single day. So at this time, when we were coming out of the COVID, I had a mentor named Bob Berg. Bob wrote this series of books called The Go-Givers. Anybody read that series? Amazing series. And I was working one-on-one with him, and one of his key rules is that money is an echo of value. So we all think like, we're gonna sign clients up, they're gonna come in, they're gonna pay us, and then we're gonna give them so much value that they're gonna love us. But the business model that works now is actually the opposite of that. You have to deliver value first and then build trust and then they will pay you. Everybody in this room has an opportunity to do exactly that. You've all got a media company in your pocket. And so you can build value just by telling people good advice, good stuff to do. And then what happens is the echo of that value is money. People trust you, people like what you're saying, and then they pay you to hear you say it to them in person, or they pay you to have you guide them through your material. And so the stuff that we publish now is like super timely. Anybody heard of AI? Yeah? Anybody using artificial intelligence to write stuff for them? Brent? Yeah, ChatGPT, Jarvis. So guys, there's this thing out there now where you can go on an app and you can say, write me 300 words about Kelly, and it will just do it for you, okay? Like, there's no need to ever get less than a B+ in English class again, but also pretty soon everybody will be at a B+ level, okay? So it will write stuff for you. And one of the best pieces of advice I got on my original blog, I was about 1.5 years in, and somebody comments, hey, Chris, these are good stories, and you've told us all this stuff that we should never do, but why don't you ever tell us what we should do? And I was like, well, that's a lot harder. But that's been our mantra ever since. We never publish stuff about like, don't do that, or avoid this, or this is a mistake, or that's bad. Now we say, do exactly this. So the content we just did this week was how to use artificial intelligence to create blog posts for you step by step. Okay? That's the kind of value that we give away for free, and it tells people exactly what they have to do to grow their gym. So the next step was from $5 million to a $20 million company. To do that, two things had to change. The first thing was we had to go from incremental growth, getting one client at a time, one client, 2 clients, 3 clients, to exponential growth. That meant that our clients had to start bringing in clients for us. And that could happen by referrals. It could also happen by partnering with big companies like Spartan Race, who show up with 100 or 200 gyms on day one, okay? Companies like Next Gen Gym Owners, who show up with 100 gyms, Legacy Martial Arts, who shows up with 30 gyms. These guys partner with us now. And the reason that they're doing that is not because we have the best marketing, it's because we have the best influence. What I didn't realize over time was what we were actually building was not an audience, it wasn't a bank account, it was influence. And so looking back, the stages of growth of this company are pretty parallel to the quality and the volume and the growth as a leader that I've had. And so I don't know if anybody read John Maxwell's books, 5 Levels of Leadership? Yeah, great stuff. So if you overlay that with Cialdini's book, Influence, this is basically what's happened. Years ago, 22 years ago, I was selling treadmills at ACFIT on Great Northern Road. And the only people who did what I told them were the 2 delivery guys who had to do what I told them or I wouldn't sign their paycheck. And then after that, we founded Catalyst in 2005. And a couple of people came with me and worked at Catalyst because they liked working out with me, basically. I was a better boss than the boss they had because I did bench press with them. And then when we started Don't Buy Ads, people were attracted to us and we had influence because I was telling the stories of what we had done and I wasn't sugarcoating anything. I was saying like, man, I really screwed that up every single day for 3 years. And then with Two Brain, they follow us because we tell stories about what our clients have done. We produced 27 millionaires this year, and we tell their story on our podcast and YouTube channel all the time. And now what's happening is these big companies are approaching us, coming to us, like CrossFit is at the table as of today, and Spartan Race, and these big brands, because of what we represent and because we did it the right way and we added value before we worried about money. And so looking back, I've realized that the big shift that took us from $5 to $20 million mostly happened in here. We had to go from incremental to exponential growth. And the second thing that I had to learn was my own mindset. Now, when I started this company, I had a real scarcity mindset. Like, there's only so many people in the Sioux who want to work out. I want them all to come to my gym. And so on the first day of owning Catalyst, I said to my partners, I'm going to put everybody else out of business. And they said, well, why are you going to do that? Like, why don't you just convince more people to exercise? And my mindset has had to evolve away from that scarcity over time. But more than that, I've had to find new motivation to keep going. So when I first sold a book for $2.50, I said, that's awesome, I'm rich. Like, that's a check from Amazon. And when the company finally reached this point where we were doing $1 million, like, our lifestyle changed a bit, right? Not a lot. I got a cooler bike. And then when the company reached 5 million, it was like our lifestyle really didn't change at all. We have a very simple lifestyle. We don't need extravagant things. And so when it came time for my exec team to say, okay, it's time to go to 10 million, how do we get from 7-figure business to 8-figure business? I just wasn't fired up about it because my lifestyle, it wasn't going to change my life. So I had a few months last year where I was just kind of like, man, whatever. And the exec team at the business noticed it. And they told my new CFO, hey, Chris isn't excited about our goals. You talk to him. So this guy, Bob from Peterborough, is like, well, you know, your team tells me you're not excited about your goals and you're not working very hard anymore. And I said, yeah, man, like, I just don't care. Like, building a $5 million business is a life that I never dreamed was going to happen when I did this stupid blog. I wake up half the time thinking I'm getting away with something and half the time thinking I won the lottery. Like, why would I care to double the business again? And he said, well, I don't know, let's think about it. What was the coolest thing that you did last year? And so we made this list of like the top 10 things that I had done in 2020. And one of the things was we bought bikes for 50 kids in the Sault, kids in CAS, foster care. And so Bob says, well, that sounds pretty awesome. I said, yeah. And he's like, how much money do you think you gave away on stuff like that in 2020? And so we started counting it all up, and it was like $100,000. And I said, that's insane. Like, I had no idea. And he's like, yeah, what if you could do that with $1 million every year? And I said, well, Bob, you know, that's ridiculous. Like, giving away $1 million a year, that seems impossible. And he said, it's not. All you got to do is build to a $20 million business and then just put 5% of your profit aside, and that's $1 million, and you just give that away. And I said, geez, Bob, like, do I have to start a not-for-profit or something? And he's like, no, you would hate owning a not-for-profit. You cannot stand answering to a board. You don't like waiting for decisions. You don't even like dealing with me right now. Like, so he gave me this advice: make lots of money and give it away. I said, that's a plan. That's what we're going to do. And so we've been able to do some really cool things. And now our goal is to give away $1 million every year for the rest of our life. We're not going to get there in a year. Our goal this year is 250. We got plans for about 150 so far, but we're just going to keep building up. And the way that I'm going to do that is just keep making lots of money and giving it away. I do want to show you guys a fringe benefit, right? Like, we don't like attention. Sometimes we don't even show up when people are going to give us awards. But one side benefit of giving money away is you get some super funny headlines written about you. And I wish David Helwig was here because he wrote half of these. The 50 lasagna plan, that's pretty awesome. Like, that's probably going to be the name of the next book. Strapping Sioux boy recruited for Santa. Like, but this is, you know, we're doing this to have an impact, not to make the news. But, you know, anytime you're in Sault today and nobody's suing you or arresting you for meth, that's a pretty good day. So now what we try to do is we try to keep publishing content to inspire entrepreneurs. So the real impact that we want to have in the Sault is this. We want to have more entrepreneurship. You guys all know, like, we're standing in a remnant of an industrial economy. That economy is pretty much gone. What's going to turn the Sault around and encourage growth is not the next paper mill. It's not the next car manufacturing plant. It's 50 entrepreneurs starting a small business, hiring 2 or 3 other people, paying those people well, making their family wealthy, and then spreading that impact through the Sault. And that's what we want to create. That's why we're doing this stuff. So we've just started a new podcast called Business is Good. And our goal there is to inspire entrepreneurship and help local entrepreneurs in the Sault grow their business way faster so that they can employ more people, sponsor more Timbits hockey teams, and make an impact. This is a brand new podcast. I think Steven's my #1 fan. Have you listened to all 6 episodes? Thanks, bro. You're the guy, okay? I thought the 5-star review was my mom, but she must have been the 3-star. We're doing a lot of like really catchy titles, like 3 business tips I learned in prison. But our goal really is just teach people the meta skills of business. One thing is, like, our kids are just in high school and entering college, and the job market is changing so fast that we don't know like what their careers are going to be. If you've got a kid in elementary school right now, the thing that they're going to wind up doing after college is a career that probably hasn't even been invented today. So the best thing that we can do is prepare them with meta skills, like public speaking, like how to influence people, like how to build an audience, like how to teach people or sell people on your idea, right? Even if you're not selling a product, sales is an important meta skill. public speaking, learning a language, whether that language is like talking to people in France or talking to robots through code. These are like meta skills that they can all use, and you can bank on that. So we want to encourage that. Financial literacy. We want to teach them about money and not to be scared of it. That wealth is not the enemy, that despite what you see on all the Disney movies, all the rich people aren't bad and all the bad people aren't rich, right? So we want to do that. And so we've got a new podcast called Business is Good. And on that podcast, I'm just sharing stories. And when I wrote Don't Buy Ads, I was sharing stories of fixing my gym. Now I'm sharing stories of building Two Brain Business and other companies. And I try to make it interesting. We've been shooting this for about 3 months. Stephen brought a question about an episode that I recorded 3 months, and I had to listen to the episode on the way up because I couldn't remember what I said. But I hope it's good, and I hope you guys listen. The ultimate thing that I've learned over the last decade of doing this is that the goal of having a business is not beat everybody else. It's not dominate the market. It's not to become Amazon and put everybody else out of business. The goal is just to wake up tomorrow excited to do it again. And that is what can help you have a happy life, as well as build wealth for your family and create an impact for your community. So thanks, guys, for giving me an hour of your time. I'm totally down to do Q&A for as long as you want to, or the bar is right downstairs too. Right, Evan? Good, thanks. Brought it in under an hour. Well, I think like the biggest thing is just exposing your kids to businesses. You know, we had a great time last month. One of the local high schools brought their entrepreneurship class. When I went to high school, there was a class for business, and it was taught by this old guy who owned a furniture store that had gone bankrupt. And so now he was like building a pension by teaching us about business, right? And of course, that's the first thing he told us. So we just like flipped the off switch and that was it. But just for kids to see that entrepreneurship is an option for them, and that even if their big idea doesn't work out, or even if they don't have a big idea, this is the kind of skill set that will make them successful in any other company eventually. I think it's an amazing thing for them to know. So asking an entrepreneur, can I come and shadow you? Co-op programs at schools are super, they're great for putting people into small business. And, worst case, the student comes to a small business, they work for a weekend or a semester, and they're like, wow, I hate this. Great. Like, you've just saved their life, right? The other key thing is, in the past, when somebody wanted to open a business, it was really an all or nothing endeavor. Like, you quit your job, and the next day you opened up your cafe, you started writing your book, and like, you were taking a massive risk. But the reality is, like, we built Two Brain Business in about 30 minutes a day. And it was 30 minutes earlier that I got to the gym and started writing a blog. And what we tell all of our clients now, by the way, we have 811 gyms worldwide now. We tell them all, every day, spend 30 minutes building your business before you do anything else. So before you have breakfast, before you open up your gym, before you mop, you spend 30 minutes building your business. And that just compounds over and over again. So anybody in here that wants to start a business, like, that's all it takes. 30 minutes a day, you start producing media, you build an audience, you find out what problems your audience has. If you can solve their problems, you provide value to them, you help them solve their problems, and they will respond with money. So I'll give you, there was one on that slide called Two Brain Coaching. So Two Brain Coaching was a super good idea. What we were seeing is, here we go. I mean, there's twice as many as I put on here. Two Brain Coaching was a great idea. So we had all these gym owners. I think we probably had about 500 at the time, and they all had to train new staff. And every gym had like between 5 and 10 coaches. All those coaches had to get trained. They all had to get certified. And I said, geez, why am I not certifying these coaches? And so we launched this company, built it up to be worth about $1 million in annual revenue. but my primary company had stopped growing and I just wasn't fired up about it. And so I sold it to my partner for $1 and just like got out. And unfortunately it's like tanked now. But what I realized was that I can only be the CEO of one company at a time. And I had to have that lesson beaten into my head like 10 times, you know. But honestly, a lot of them are massive success stories. Like Spark Rehab, you guys have maybe heard of that. They're in the Sault now. I was a partner in that when it started up. Ignite Gym, Haley took that over and she's crushing it, right? It's just I didn't have the bandwidth to be CEO in those companies anymore. Yeah, in each of these cases, well, for most of them, I started with a partner. And in every case, what I should have looked for was a partner who'd started a business before. Because in most cases, I was either an investor or I was bringing the audience to them. So like the reason Two Brain Coaching grew so fast was I already had 30,000 gym owners reading an email from me every day. So for me to say like, hey, you should go get your guys certified, they immediately sold like 1,000 certifications. The problem though was that the partner was not a CEO. And so if I had to choose how do I spend my day between Two Brain Business and this coaching thing, and I wasn't spending it on the coaching thing, the business would start to shrink. And so soon, like you've got even 2 balls in the air is one too many. And often, you know, I do have very, very smart people around me who are comfortable saying, cut it out. Like you need to get your head back in the game and focus on this. And that's taken time too. Like you have to have people around you at a high level that you trust and who also know that you're not going to fire them if they tell you you're doing it wrong. So luckily one of those is my sister. We hired my sister, we recruited her out of RC Pets, a $50 million company, to come into Two Brain and be our COO. And so there's somebody who's comfortable telling me to shut the F up and, you know, get my head in the game. I guarantee every single day you're out there driving, you've got one good story by the end of the day, right? And so you can't be like, oh, I picked up Cooper at the mill and he was so hammered. But you can definitely like take a short video, use vertical setting on your phone, less than 60 seconds. Hey guys, it's Steve. Man, you know, we just drove these 2 people home, beautiful people. They had little kids waiting for them when they got home, but they should not be driving. I'm so glad they called me. You know, that's an amazing story to put out there, and you can do that every day. Tell a story, yeah. Oh, I just drove this guy to you wouldn't believe, you know, Taylor Swift just got on Air Canada, you know. That doesn't happen often, but we're not surprised, right? So stay away from like slamming Air Canada, but everything else is fair game, yeah. Yeah, so what you start off with is like, you look at all the things that you do in a day. I learned this way back from Dennis. So his first assignment was like, tomorrow when you park your truck at the gym, you're gonna get out of the car with a notepad and a pen, and you're gonna write like, where should people park their car? And then they're gonna be like, what key unlocks the door? You're gonna just record everything you do. And then what you're gonna do is group those things together. So it's like every cleaning task goes on one list. Every coaching a class task goes on another list, and those become job descriptions. And then you say, okay, out of all these, you know, 6 job descriptions, where can I replace myself cheapest? So for me, it was the cleaner. And so yeah, we've hired a lot of cleaners. I've got a ton of great stories. I got a whole podcast in there, but we hired a cleaner, and the first cleaner's named Sean. And while Sean mopped the floors, I would sit there and write our newsletter. And that newsletter would bring me clients. And then, you know, I raised Sean from 2 hours a week to 5 hours a week. And I would sit at the desk and I would call old clients and bring them back in. And then, you know, I couldn't hire another cleaner. So I hired a coach to take the morning class. Her name was Charity. She did an amazing job. But I still went to the gym at 6 a.m. And while she coached, I was working on something else, you know, keep building. But you can start by hiring somebody at like a minimum wage role and building up. So with Two Brain, we got to $1 million And the first hire was this woman named Joyce, who just took over operations for us. And she would like, you know, order a bunch of Two Brain Business t-shirts and like go down to, you know, FedEx and like ship them out. You know, it took that off my plate. And then we would we hired an admin, you know, somebody to handle like collections for us. Like we would get 10 people paying a day and 3 of their payments would bounce. And I didn't have time to chase them, so we were losing money, right? So yeah, like that. You build your way up. So there was never a time when I was going in the red to hire anybody, but the margins did get very exciting for a while, yeah. So these guys would tell you this story if they were here. So I was doing personal training at this gym downtown, and I was doing one-on-one sessions with these 2 guys. I didn't even know they were business partners, Luke Duchesne and Norm Gerling. You guys all know Norm probably, right? Amazing guy. So they're like, Chris, you need to start your own gym. You're not making enough money. And they were right. Like one day I worked 13 personal training hours in a row and took home like $200. And I was like, this is not enough. So they're like, the only way is you got to start your own gym. And I'm like, all right, what do I do? And the one guy is like, well, I got $16,000 left on my credit card. You could have it, but you got to give me $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. And I was like, that sounds great, right? So that's what we did. And we just bought a bunch of equipment. And then the owner of the gym where I was working found out, like fired me really quick. But he's like, you're going to write a letter to every member of this gym and tell them why you're quitting. And I mean, that was amazing for me, right? Because then it was like, not only am I quitting, but I'm only going down the street. Yeah. So we opened, we had like 30 clients right away. And then about a year into the business, I said like, you know, to the 2 partners, I bought them out. It was just like, you know, I had more than repaid the loan and they had made a really good return. But the next step, I just wasn't eating enough, you know, and like the next step really required me to have some cash in the bank. And so luckily for me, they were like, okay, yeah, we're out, you know, pay us this and we're gone. And I'm still friends with both guys, but yeah, $16,000 to start Catalyst. I probably wasted like 15,000 of it though. So, right? Like, what's a machine that I always wished I had? Well, I'm getting that, you know, and then it's stored in our garage right now, really. Yeah. Yeah. In hindsight, I would say do it before you do anything else. Like have a contract, and in that contract, it should be like who owns what shares, how do people get paid and when, who is lending the company money, but also like how do we get out of this? Because it really is the honeymoon phase and everybody's excited and we're gonna open up this amazing donut shop. We're all gonna be billionaires. And nobody is thinking about like what happens if the company runs out of money. And so it's really important to have that shareholders doc. And one thing that we put in every contract with every business we sign is called a shotgun exit, which is just like a very quick and dirty, an independent appraiser gives us a value of the company. If we each own 50%, I can buy you out for your half, or you can turn around and buy me out. And if I underbid you, you can turn around and buy me out for my bid. Like, and that's it. And it just keeps people honest. But honestly, like, as soon as I started figuring out like what the actual value of my time and attention is, I just started parting with companies for like $1 because it wasn't worth the negotiation, you know? So like Two Brain Coaching, for example, like I probably could have sold that for $200,000, right? But it would have taken 6 months. It would have taken lawyers. I would have given 40% of that to the government, which is my favorite, you know? And, you know, I probably would have soured a friendship over it, where really, if I had taken that same amount of time and just focused on growing Two Brain, I would have earned way more than $200,000, and that's what happened. So, but you know, that said, like, I do have a partnership. Robin's my partner. And so while I'm out there doing this stuff, like she is taking care of everything else, right? So, other questions, guys? Well, hey, thanks a lot for donating your time tonight, coming and listening to me ramble about this stuff.